The moment you wake up on a bad day, your mind begins telling a story. It whispers that today will be another failure, another disappointment, another reminder that life is unfair. Most people believe that voice without questioning it. They carry it through breakfast, through work, through every conversation. By sunset, they aren't exhausted because the day defeated them. They're exhausted because they spent the entire day fighting a battle inside their own head. But what if I told you that the greatest Stoic minds believed a bad day doesn't begin when something goes wrong? It begins the moment you surrender control of your thoughts. And before this video ends, you'll discover a formula that has helped soldiers survive impossible conditions, entrepreneurs recover after losing everything parents endure, unimaginable pain, and ordinary people transform their darkest mornings into the strongest days of their lives. Stay with me, because the final piece of this formula is the one almost everyone misses, and it changes everything. Most people imagine strength as something loud. They picture someone who never cries, never struggles, never doubts themselves. The Stoics saw strength differently. To them, the strongest person in the room wasn't the loudest. It was the one who could remain calm while everything around them collapsed. That kind of strength isn't something you're born with. It's something you build one difficult day at a time. Imagine waking up to discover that everything planned for today has already fallen apart. Your alarm didn't go off. You're late for work. Someone sends you an angry message. Your car refuses to start. Bills arrive in your mailbox. Your confidence disappears before you've even had your first cup of coffee. At that moment, life seems to be telling you that today isn't your day. Most people immediately begin collecting evidence that confirms this belief. Every inconvenience becomes proof that the universe is against them. Every small mistake becomes another reason to give up. The Stoics would smile at that moment, not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they understood something the modern world constantly forgets. A difficult morning does not have the authority to decide what kind of day you will have. Only your response can make that decision. There is an old story about a Roman merchant who lost nearly everything during a violent storm at sea. His ships disappeared beneath the waves. Years of work vanished in a single afternoon. His friends expected him to collapse under grief. Instead, he quietly returned home, sat with his family, and began planning his next move before sunrise the following morning. Someone asked him how he remained so calm after losing everything. His answer surprised everyone. He said, "The storm only took what belonged to the sea. It could not take who I choose to become today." That sentence contains a level of freedom that most people never experience. We spend our lives believing our identity depends on circumstances. When things go well, we feel valuable. When life falls apart, we believe we have fallen apart too. Stoicism challenges this illusion. It teaches that your character exists independently from your circumstances. Marcus Aurelius spent years surrounded by war, disease, betrayal, political chaos, and constant pressure. Yet his private writings rarely focused on changing the world around him. Instead, they focused on mastering the world inside him. He understood something profound. There will always be another difficult day waiting somewhere in your future. The question isn't whether bad days will arrive. The question is who you'll become when they do. Think about someone you admire. Maybe it's a grandparent who stayed kind despite enormous hardship. Maybe it's a coach who remained calm under pressure. Maybe it's someone who quietly carried responsibilities without asking for recognition. Chances are their greatness wasn't created during easy seasons. It was forged through repeated encounters with disappointment. Every bad day became another opportunity to strengthen qualities that comfortable people never develop. Our culture constantly sells the opposite message. It promises perfect mornings, productive routines, endless motivation, and lives free from discomfort. Social media fills your screen with people who appear to have everything under control. Their kitchens are spotless. Their bodies are perfect. Their businesses never fail. Their smiles never fade. You compare your ordinary struggles to their carefully edited highlights and wonder why your life feels heavier. The Stoics would remind you that appearances have always been deceptive. Every person you envy is carrying invisible battles. Every successful life contains private disappointments. Every confident face has known fear. The difference isn't that some people avoid bad days. The difference is that some people refuse to let those days define them. Imagine two people facing the exact same setback. Both lose an important opportunity. One spends the next month replaying the event in their mind. They blame themselves. They blame others. They replay conversations that can never be changed. They become trapped inside yesterday. The second person feels the same disappointment. They allow themselves to experience the emotion. But after acknowledging it, they ask a different question. What remains under my control right now? That single question changes the entire direction of their future. Epictetus taught that freedom begins the moment we separate what belongs to us from what never did. Your effort belongs to you. Your choices belong to you. Your attitude belongs to you. Other people's opinions never belonged to you. The weather never belonged to you. The economy never belonged to you. Luck never belonged to you. Yet most people spend their lives trying to control everything except the one thing that actually determines their happiness. Picture carrying a backpack every day filled with rocks that don't belong to you. One rock represents someone's criticism. Another represents your fear of failing. Another represents regret from 5 years ago. Another represents worrying about tomorrow. Every day you wonder why you're exhausted without. Realizing you've been carrying weight you were never meant to hold. The Stoic formula begins by putting those rocks down, but letting go sounds simple until life tests you. That's where the real challenge begins. A young nurse once described working through one of the hardest periods of her career. Every shift brought heartbreak. Patients passed away despite everyone's best efforts. Families cried in hospital hallways. She went home emotionally drained every night, convinced she wasn't strong enough to continue. Eventually, an older colleague shared advice she would never forget. You cannot control who walks through these doors. You cannot control every outcome. But every patient deserves the best version of you while they're here. Focus there. Leave the rest behind. That advice transformed her career. The circumstances didn't improve overnight. The pain didn't disappear. But her relationship with suffering changed. She stopped measuring success by outcomes she couldn't control. She began measuring success by the integrity of her actions. That's one of the greatest hidden powers within Stoicism. It shifts your definition of victory. Most people believe winning means getting the promotion, finding the relationship, earning more money, avoiding criticism, or achieving perfect results. Stoicism offers a different scoreboard. Winning means responding with courage when fear appears. Winning means choosing patience when anger feels easier. Winning means acting with integrity, even when nobody notices. Once you adopt that definition, nobody can permanently defeat you. There will still be difficult mornings. You will still experience rejection. People will misunderstand you. Plans will fail. Loved ones will disappoint you. Your own mind will sometimes become your greatest enemy. But every challenge becomes another opportunity to strengthen something deeper than comfort. Seneca often reflected on the danger of living as though comfort were the highest goal. He believed hardship revealed hidden strengths that easy living could never produce. Imagine a sword that spends its entire existence displayed behind glass. It remains beautiful but never becomes useful. Another sword endures constant friction, sharpening and testing. One day when real danger appears, only one of them can fulfill its purpose. Human. Character works the same way. The bad days you wish would disappear are often shaping abilities your future self will desperately need. Consider the entrepreneur whose first business failed after years of effort. Friends quietly moved on. Investors stopped answering calls. Confidence disappeared almost overnight. For weeks, he questioned whether he had wasted the best years of his life. Then one afternoon, while organizing old notebooks, he realized something surprising. Although the company had failed, he had become someone entirely different. He had learned leadership, negotiation, resilience, communication, discipline, and emotional endurance. None of those qualities disappeared when the business closed. The money was gone, the wisdom remained. Years later, his second company succeeded far beyond the first. People called him an overnight success. They never saw the years when failure quietly built the person capable of handling success responsibly. Life often works this way. We become obsessed with visible outcomes while ignoring invisible growth. Yet invisible growth is what eventually creates visible results. Every bad day contains two stories happening at the same time. One story is obvious. Something went wrong. Someone disappointed you. Circumstances became difficult. The second story is almost invisible. Who are you becoming because of this experience? Most people never notice the second story. The Stoics built their entire philosophy around it. The next part of the formula becomes even more uncomfortable because it forces us to confront the greatest illusion most people carry every single day. It isn't created by failure. It isn't created by other people. It's created by the voice inside your own mind. And once you recognize how that voice quietly steals your peace, you'll never experience bad days the same way again. The strange thing about the human mind is that it can turn a single moment into an entire identity. You make one mistake and suddenly you're not someone who made a mistake. You're a failure. One person rejects you and suddenly you're convinced nobody will ever value you. One difficult morning becomes proof that your entire life is falling apart. The event lasts a few minutes, but the story your mind creates can last for years. This is where the Stoics become surprisingly modern. Long before psychologists studied cognitive distortions, they understood that people suffer more from the meaning they attach to events than from the events themselves. A bad day is rarely destroyed by what happens. It's destroyed by the conversation you have with yourself afterward. Think about the last time something unexpected ruined your plans. Maybe your boss criticized your work. Maybe someone ignored your message. Maybe you lost money. Maybe your child had a difficult day at school. Maybe you simply woke up feeling emotionally empty for no obvious reason. None of those situations automatically decide the rest of your day. Yet within seconds, your mind begins writing a script. Nothing ever works out for me. I'm always behind. People don't respect me. I'll never get where I want to be. The frightening part is that after repeating these sentences enough times, they stop sounding like opinions. They begin sounding like facts. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that the mind has incredible creative power. The same imagination capable of building hope can also manufacture unnecessary suffering. If you are not careful, your own thoughts become the prison you live inside. Imagine a man walking through a forest at sunset. In the distance, he notices what looks like a dangerous snake lying across the path. His heart races. His breathing becomes shallow. His body prepares for danger. He carefully backs away, convinced he has avoided disaster. The next morning he returns with sunlight shining through the trees. The snake is gone. In its place lies nothing more than a twisted rope. His fear was real. The danger was not. Now think about how often this happens inside your own mind. How many conversations have you rehearsed that never happened? How many disasters have you imagined that never arrived? How many nights have you sacrificed to problems that solved themselves? How many opportunities have you avoided because fear convinced you the outcome was already decided? The Stoics knew that imagination without discipline becomes one of the greatest sources of misery. This doesn't mean ignoring problems. It means refusing to suffer twice, once in your imagination and once in reality. A firefighter once described arriving at emergency scenes where everyone around him panicked. Some screamed, some froze, others ran without thinking. During training, he learned something that changed his entire career. When chaos begins, your first responsibility is not to solve every problem. Your first responsibility is to control yourself, because a calm mind notices solutions that panic never sees. Life works exactly the same way. When a bad day begins, most people immediately react emotionally. They argue, they quit, they complain, they send messages they later regret. They make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. The Stoic chooses a different response. Pause, observe, separate facts from feelings, only then act. That pause is where freedom lives. It may last 5 seconds. It may last 5 minutes. Sometimes it lasts an entire day. But inside that small space, you reclaim something priceless: choice. Without that pause, you become a puppet controlled by every emotion that passes through you. With it, you become the author of your own character. There was once a school principal known for remaining remarkably calm no matter what happened. Teachers often wondered how she handled constant complaints, angry parents, unexpected crises, and endless responsibilities without losing her composure. One afternoon, a new teacher finally asked her secret. She smiled and said, "Every morning before entering the building, I remind myself that today someone will disappoint me, someone will misunderstand me, someone will criticize me, and something will go wrong. Since I already expect these things, they no longer surprise me. They simply become part of the job." That simple habit reflects one of the most powerful Stoic practices. Don't expect life to obey your preferences. Expect life to be life. Most suffering comes from arguing with reality. Traffic should not exist. People should always be honest. Nobody should betray me. Everything should happen according to my timeline. The world owes me fairness. Reality never signed that agreement. The moment you stop demanding perfection from life, your emotional stability becomes much stronger. Seneca believed that many people are destroyed not because life is unbearable, but because their expectations are unrealistic. They expect uninterrupted happiness, endless approval, constant comfort. Then ordinary difficulties feel like personal attacks. But imagine beginning every day differently. Instead of expecting comfort, you expect opportunities to practice patience. Instead of expecting easy conversations, you expect chances to strengthen compassion. Instead of expecting perfect outcomes, you expect opportunities to improve your character. Suddenly, every challenge has purpose. A rainy morning is no longer an inconvenience, it's training. A difficult coworker is no longer just an annoyance, they're training. An unexpected setback becomes another repetition in the emotional gym where resilience is built. Athletes understand this instinctively. Nobody enters a weight room expecting the weights to feel light. The resistance is the entire point. Without resistance, muscles never grow. Without emotional resistance, character never grows either. That's why some of the strongest people you know often have the hardest stories. They didn't become calm because life protected them. They became calm because life repeatedly challenged them until peace became a discipline instead of an accident. Think about an old oak tree standing alone in an open field. Every storm pushes against it. Every season changes around it. Winds bend its branches, lightning scars its trunk, yet year after year it remains standing. Not because storms stopped coming, because deep beneath the surface, its roots kept growing stronger. People admire the tree. They rarely admire the roots. Your habits are those roots, the conversations you have with yourself every morning, the books you read, the promises you keep, the discipline you practice when nobody is watching, the honesty you show when lying would be easier. These invisible choices determine whether you collapse during difficult seasons or remain standing. Most people wait until life becomes painful before building emotional strength. The Stoics recommended the opposite. Train before the storm arrives. One executive adopted an unusual morning ritual after suffering severe burnout. Before checking his phone, before reading emails, before looking at financial reports, he spent 10 quiet minutes asking himself 3 questions. What is truly under my control today? Who do I want to become before this day ends? What challenge can I meet with dignity instead of frustration? Nothing magical happened overnight. His workload remained demanding. Unexpected problems continued. But his relationship with pressure changed completely. Instead of allowing circumstances to define his mindset, he deliberately chose his mindset before circumstances had a chance to influence him. That is emotional leadership. Not leading other people first, leading yourself. And perhaps that is the rarest form of leadership in today's world. Anyone can remain positive when everything goes according to plan. Real character appears when plans collapse. Anyone can speak kindly when respected. Real character appears when insulted. Anyone can remain disciplined when motivated. Real discipline appears when motivation disappears. Epictetus often encouraged people to stop asking whether life was treating them fairly and begin asking whether they were responding wisely. Notice how different those questions feel. One creates helplessness, the other creates power. Victims ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Stoics ask, "What can this teach me?" Victims search for someone to blame. Stoics search for the next right action. Victims wait for better circumstances. Stoics become better people regardless of circumstances. That shift sounds small. In reality, it transforms entire lives. There was a father raising 2 children after unexpectedly losing his wife. Every morning, grief greeted him before he even opened his eyes. Some days getting out of bed felt impossible. Friends often told him to stay strong. Eventually he realized strength wasn't pretending he wasn't hurting. Strength meant making breakfast even while hurting, driving his children to school even while hurting, reading bedtime stories even while hurting, laughing with them whenever possible even while hurting. His pain remained, but it no longer controlled his behavior. That is one of the purest expressions of Stoic resilience. You do not need perfect emotions to perform honorable actions. You simply need the courage to keep choosing them. Modern culture often tells us to follow our feelings. The Stoics would gently challenge that advice. Feelings matter, but feelings make poor leaders. Some mornings, your emotions will encourage courage. Other mornings, they will encourage surrender. If you follow them blindly, your life becomes unpredictable. Instead, build your life around values that remain steady even when emotions change. Integrity, patience, discipline, kindness, self-respect, responsibility. These become your internal compass when the emotional weather keeps changing. Imagine a ship crossing the ocean during a violent storm. The captain cannot command the waves. He cannot silence the wind. He cannot stop the rain, but he can keep his hands on the wheel. Your values are that wheel. Everything else is weather. Most people spend their lives trying to control the weather. The Stoic protects the wheel. Once you understand this, the meaning of a bad day begins to change. Instead of asking whether today feels good, you begin asking whether today made you stronger. Instead of asking whether life was easy, you begin asking whether you lived with honor. Instead of asking whether people appreciated you, you begin asking whether you respected yourself. That is where genuine confidence begins. Not in applause, not in achievement, not in perfection, but in knowing that no matter what happened today, you refuse to abandon your principles. And yet there is one final piece of the Stoic formula that separates those who merely survive bad days from those who actually use them to build extraordinary lives. It is the lesson that transforms pain into purpose and turns ordinary setbacks into the foundation of unshakable confidence. Most people never discover it. Those who do are almost impossible to break. The final piece of the Stoic formula is the one that changes everything because it forces you to stop asking a question that quietly steals your peace every single day. Most people wake up asking, "How can I avoid pain today?" The Stoics ask something completely different. How can I use whatever happens today to become stronger tomorrow? That single shift changes the entire direction of your life. Imagine 2 blacksmiths standing beside the same blazing fire. One places a piece of steel into the flames and removes it the moment it becomes uncomfortable. The other leaves the steel inside long enough for it to be transformed. The fire is the same. The difference is not the heat. The difference is the willingness to endure the process. Your difficult days are that fire. Most people spend their lives trying to escape every uncomfortable feeling. They distract themselves the moment loneliness appears. They reach for their phones the second boredom arrives. They avoid difficult conversations because conflict feels unpleasant. They abandon meaningful goals because progress becomes slow. Little by little, they train themselves to run from discomfort. The tragedy is that everything worthwhile lives on the other side of temporary discomfort. Confidence is earned through uncomfortable action. Discipline is built through uncomfortable repetition. Trust is created through uncomfortable honesty. Wisdom grows through uncomfortable reflection. Resilience is born through uncomfortable seasons. There was a young man who dreamed of running a marathon. During the first week of training, he could barely finish a few miles without stopping. His legs hurt, his breathing felt heavy. Every morning his mind offered convincing excuses to quit. You are not built for this. You started too late. Other people are naturally stronger. Why keep embarrassing yourself? Instead of arguing with those thoughts, he simply smiled every time they appeared. He realized something important. The voice telling him to quit was not predicting the future. It was protecting him from temporary discomfort. Month after month he continued training. Nothing happened quickly. Some weeks felt worse than others. Some mornings he questioned everything. But 1 year later, he crossed the finish line of his first marathon. People congratulated his physical endurance. Very few recognized what he had really conquered. He had stopped believing every thought that entered his mind, that victory mattered far more than the medal. Marcus Aurelius understood that every human being possesses two different lives: the external life everyone sees and the internal life only you experience. Your external life includes your career, your income, your appearance, your reputation, your achievements, and your possessions. Your internal life includes your courage, your patience, your integrity, your self-respect, your emotional discipline, and your peace. Modern society spends enormous energy improving the external life while quietly neglecting the internal one. People work endlessly to appear successful while privately feeling empty. They chase admiration while secretly fearing rejection. They accumulate possessions while losing themselves. The Stoics reversed the order, strengthened the internal life first. Everything else becomes easier to carry. Think about the people who leave the deepest impression on you. Rarely is it because they owned the nicest house. Rarely is it because they drove the most expensive car. Usually it is because of how they made others feel. Their calm during chaos, their kindness during conflict, their courage during uncertainty, their honesty when deception would have been easier. Character creates a legacy that success alone never can. One elderly carpenter spent more than 50 years building homes. Near retirement, a reporter asked him what he considered his greatest achievement. The reporter expected him to name his largest project. Instead, the carpenter smiled and said, "Every house eventually grows old, but every day I practiced becoming a better man." That was the real construction project. His answer stayed with everyone who heard it because it revealed something timeless. Every day, you are building someone. The question is whether you are building intentionally. Most people think transformation happens during dramatic moments. They imagine one powerful speech, one inspiring book, one lucky opportunity suddenly changing everything. Real transformation is much quieter. It happens when you choose patience instead of anger during an ordinary Tuesday. It happens when you keep your promise even when nobody would know if you broke it. It happens when you continue working after motivation disappears. It happens when you refuse to let disappointment become your identity. These moments seem insignificant. Together, they shape the person you become. Imagine placing one drop of water onto a stone every day. The first drop changes nothing. The 100th drop still appears meaningless. But after thousands of drops, the stone begins to change. Character develops exactly that way. Tiny, consistent choices eventually become extraordinary strength. Seneca often reminded himself that time is the only possession every person receives equally, yet most people spend it as though it were unlimited. Bad days become especially dangerous because they tempt us to waste time. We waste hours replaying arguments. We waste days resenting people. We waste months fearing possibilities that never happen. We waste years waiting for perfect conditions before beginning the life we truly want. One afternoon, an elderly woman sitting on a park bench watched children laughing while chasing each other across the grass. A stranger sat beside her and asked what she would do differently if she could live her life again. She thought quietly before answering. I would stop postponing joy. I spent decades believing happiness would arrive after the next promotion, after the next vacation, after the children grew older, after retirement, after life became easier. Then I realized life never stopped presenting new challenges. If I waited for perfect conditions, I would never truly live. That realization reflects one of the deepest Stoic truths. Peace is not the reward waiting at the end of difficulty. Peace is something you practice during difficulty. You cannot control whether every day feels good. You can control whether every day is meaningful. There is an enormous difference. Meaning survives hardship. Pleasure often does not. The strongest people are not those who avoided pain. They are those who found purpose inside it. Picture a lighthouse standing beside the ocean. Storm after storm crashes against it. Massive waves strike its walls. Powerful winds howl through the darkness. Yet night after night, the light continues shining. The lighthouse does not waste energy arguing with the storm. It focuses entirely on its purpose. That image perfectly captures the Stoic mind. Your purpose is not to eliminate every storm. Your purpose is to keep your light alive while storms pass. One day you will experience a morning that begins badly. Perhaps someone you trusted will betray you. Perhaps your plans will suddenly collapse. Perhaps your health will challenge you. Perhaps fear will arrive without warning. When that day comes, remember this formula. Pause before reacting. Separate facts from stories. Focus only on what belongs to your control. Choose your values instead of your emotions. Treat every obstacle as training. Protect your peace more fiercely than your pride. Build your character instead of chasing comfort. Then move forward one honorable action at a time. Not because it feels easy, because it is who you have decided to become. Years from now, you may not remember the details of today's problems. You probably will not remember every stressful email, every traffic jam, every disappointing conversation, or every frustrating setback. But you will become the person those moments quietly shaped. That is why every bad day matters, not because it ruins your future, because it helps create it. Every sunrise gives you another opportunity to practice wisdom instead of worry, discipline instead of excuses. Courage instead of fear, gratitude instead of resentment, self-respect instead of self-pity. And if you continue making those choices day after day, something remarkable happens. The bad days never completely disappear, but they stop controlling your life. Instead, they become the very reason your life becomes extraordinary. The Stoics were never searching for an easy life. They were building an unbreakable one. And now that same choice belongs to you. The next time life tests your patience, remember that this moment is not asking whether you are comfortable. It is asking who you are becoming. Choose wisely, because the person you become on your hardest days is the person who will eventually shape your greatest victories. If this message spoke to something deep inside you, don't let it end here. Share in the comments what challenge you're facing right now, and more importantly, what Stoic principle you will use to face it. Your story may become the encouragement someone else desperately needs today. If you believe in building a calmer mind, stronger character, and a life guided by wisdom rather than emotion, subscribe to the channel and join this growing community. Every week, we explore timeless Stoic lessons that help ordinary people become mentally stronger, emotionally freer, and impossible to break. Until the next video, remember this. A bad day is never the end of your story unless you decide to stop writing it. Keep moving forward. Your strongest chapter may be the very next one.